So, yay! So, are we ready? Are you taping? Okay. So that's what got me interested in writing this book, which is the Hoodoo Guide to the Bible. One, helping other people hear what I've been able to research just on my own about the Bible and Bible knowledge. Not just Bible knowledge, but also African American knowledge, cultural knowledge, diaspora knowledge. All of that was what I wanted to get out of this. Mixed in with little anecdotes about my family and the Pink Lady's quilt, a few other things. I had a reading done months ago, maybe in May. Aries, granddaughter Crow, Julie were all there, and I told them about my nightmares I was having. I was having some crazy, horrible nightmares. And for me, when I have nightmares, they start to manifest into something else. Like, oh, you need to go do something, or oh, you need to go leave something, or oh, you need to start loving something more. In that space, Julie and granddaughter Crow said, you're not doing something you were supposed to have done a long time ago. And you don't have a lot of time to do it. And I was like, what's that mean? Because like, what does Brenda say? Like, you hold that up towards your angels and you go, okay, how long do I have to write this book? 99% of the time, is it gonna kill me? No. Okay, then I can just, don't even worry about that fear. But the 1% of the time, I look at it and I go, how much longer do I have to write this book? And my guide said, girl, you hurry up and finish that book. And I was like, oh, I need to finish the book. So that's when I started really paying attention and trying to hurry up and finish the book. Once I stopped doubting and fearing and thinking about, you know, what'll happen if I write the book and it sucks? Or what if I write the book and I get some theologian from somewhere that says, your, you know, ideas about the Bible and Christianity are full of shit. Great. Once I got that out of my head, and I was like, and so be it. All of us have our opinions. And mine is just one more. Then I started really getting involved in it and started doing more and more research. And my research is going to be a lifetime of learning more about this beautiful book that I call the biggest spell book known to man, called the Bible. Whether you're religious or not religious or atheist or you could give a care, that's what the Bible is to me. I use it for love spells, I use it for conjuring, I use it for root work, I use it to figure out what roots and herbs to put into my work. I get it all from the Bible, right? Because the Bible tells us a whole bunch of cool stuff that I've read a lot of hoodoo books from other authors who have a different point of view than I do, that are still very valid, but I never saw them say, if you're going to play around with hoodoo, start with the Bible. Even if you don't believe as a Christian, because to me, the Bible isn't a Christian book. All right, let's just start there. Anybody have anything to say about that? Right?
I agree.
Okay. Right, but I don't know. I mean, there's valid on both sides. What do you guys think?
I think for me, the first thought of the Bible is not a Christian book came from an atheist friend who is an English grad, because I can't say major because that was 15 years ago.
Right.
But part of her English classes were they had to read the Bible as literature.
Yes.
And so when you're presenting this at a public college that's not a Christian college, saying, and now we're going to break it down as literature, then it was really interesting to hear her perspective. And she was like, it's a great story.
It's a great story. It's a great story. And if many of us could agree that it's just a great story, it would probably solve a whole bunch of problems. A whole bunch of problems. In my book, oh, is GGC gonna, yeah, maybe, okay. In my book, one of the things that I say, my mother-in-law Bonnie says, in faith, there's truth and there's fact. When you use the Bible for hoodoo, you're coming from a point of faith, intention, and direction, and it's truth. You're not using the Bible as a fact. For example, water is a fact. The cleansing power of water to help soothe the soul or comfort someone that is in pain could be truth, if you believe that. That's where I'm coming from this. That's where all of my verses are coming. So when you look at my verses and you go, oh, I want a verse on sexual pleasure. My favorite book in the Bible is all about sexual pleasure. I don't know why, but just the thought of using the Bible as a manual for sex makes me so happy. It just makes me so excited. Because I think many times when you think of the authors of the Bible, you don't think of them as sexual creatures. You think of them, I know I used to think of this, oh, holy, la la la. No, they were out just trying to make a living like everybody else. I could imagine in today's time, you would have us all as characters in some version of the Bible. You certainly would have 45 as a character in the Bible. You would have, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
You would have Putin as a person in the Bible. You would certainly have many of the people that we see that are kids, that are coming up and growing up going, this is my world, this is my land. You're not going to go around killing it and killing the animals and the earth that are in it without me standing up and saying something. To me, that would be in our Bible. Anyway. Ezekiel 16:8, taken from page 85. Then I passed by you and saw you, and behold, you were at a time for love. So I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. I also swore to you and entered into a covenant with you, so that you became mine, declares the Lord. So, in context.
I'm embarrassed.
Are you embarrassed? In context, when this was written, this is really talking not just about when we say, when the author says, when Ezekiel's saying, and behold, you were at a time for love, this is consensual sex. When you were at a time for consensual love. Many times consensual love back in that day was what, 12, 13? Mm-hmm. Many times you'll see in the Bible polyamory. You'll see adultery. You'll see sex with a whole bunch of maids. Poor maids. There were so many. I mean, really? Did you ever want to be anybody's maidservant when you were in the Bible? No. Because you would have 13 kids by salt and then. So anyway, that's one of them. I also talk about how the book is a spell. The Bible is one of the largest book of spells that I know of. It has ingredients, herbs, incantations, timing, and this is on page 43. Rituals. It tells you what to expect before and after in the story, so that it helps you understand if the spell's even working. And that's another reason why I love using the Bible all the time. Is because if you have a doubt, if I put olive oil on something, and I anoint the head, and then what's supposed to happen? Oh, you're supposed to be blessed, or you're supposed to be cursed, or so-and-so will stop sleeping with your man. That's where I go with the Bible. So I really find that it's deep and interesting, and I hope that you all find the same amount of joy that I did in understanding more and more about the Bible, and I hope it gives you a thirst to do more and more with the Bible work and spell work. Another thing that I put in here on page 115 is different ways the Bible says on topics that were important in those days, and how those words are important now in our days. They're so similar. 1,500 instances of the word father. 725 instances of the word heart, 547 instances of the word love, but only 179 instances of the word hate. So even in the Bible's verses themselves, they're saying, what's more important? Family and love. I don't see retribution. I don't see hate against homosexuals. I don't see issues with you having open relationships. I don't see any of those being the topics that made even the top 5. That's just crazy. And out of that, I know some of the time I'll get asked, well, can you do a lot of hoodoo work on justice? I want to get revenge. I want to get vengeance on this or justice on that or whatever. In the Bible, there's only 29 instances of the word justice. It's pretty much love, heart, family. I did really appreciate there's more instances of the word wine than hate. I like that. There's 273 instances of wine, and that is another reason why I knew that the authors are truly my people. So, what do they like to do? They like to have some really consensual, at a time, love with some wine. And that's basically what the Bible was. But really it was more than that. Another person that came up in the book was my great-grandma, Gran. And I talk a lot about Gran in the very beginning of the book because she's my roots. She's everybody that I looked up to. She cared for me. She showed me unconditional love, even though every now and then I got a spanking. But she was there for unconditional love. On page 8, well, let me keep going with her. I start off with her on page 17. Gran was the ultimate, on 18, Gran was the ultimate matriarch of our family. She died many, many years ago after living a life of over 95 years. She was a religious woman that used Southern traditions that she would have just called living, but now I know is hoodoo. Like many of our relatives, she used herbs and bags and objects to make us feel better or to keep us happy or to prevent oogie boogies from getting to us in the middle of the night. There's a pink ladies quilt that my family had from generation to generation to generation. So after I introduce you to Gran, then I tell you stories about the quilt and why it's so important to me. So I like that part too. I also talk about the diaspora. The diaspora being the one thread that I think helps all of us. Because all of us, as a culture, as a nation, as a people, we typically have been taken from one home and probably forcibly taken to another home. Crazy. When I've been reading African American books, I hear, oh, that's just a black experience. No, this happened to the Irish, this happened to the Jews, this happened to the Italians, this happened all over. And I try to do my version of what diaspora looks like, starting with African Americans and moving all the way up. So that's another thing that I talk about in the book. So for any of you that have already seen the book, do you have any questions for me or anything else before I start signing or maybe reading other parts of the book? No? All right. I'm going to read to you page 39 through 41. Praise and possession. Praise and possession. Growing up in Kansas, I couldn't pass up a good heavy metal band. I was that girl. Yes, I was in the Church of God in Christ. Holiness and very charismatic, Christian, running up and down the aisles, the whole bit. But I also loved how much music moved me. any kind of music or a Christian. The first time I heard of a group called Metallica, I was intrigued and a bit afraid to listen to their albums. Many in my spirit-filled community said they were devil worshippers and they were right up there with Ozzy Osbourne. We've had that discussion. Where they ate bats and rats on stage. But there I was, going in my local record store, buying a cassette and secretly playing it in my car. By the way, Ozzy did buy a single bat head as a joke and had to do a series of rabies shots after.
He actually thought it was a rubber bat somebody had thrown on
Yeah, you didn't think
stage.
it was real, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't saying, huh? He
Yeah.
was Santana. Okay.
You spelled that wrong.
Right. Painful learning experience. The powerful guitar and drums were the first thing I noticed, right? When you guys think, I don't know how many of you guys are Metallica friends, but I'm just gonna geek out for a second. But when you hear dun-na-na-na-na, dun-na-na-na-na, and you just start going, oh yeah, I'm about to get into this, oh this is bullshit. And then before you know it, your head is kind of, okay. The powerful guitar and drums were the first thing I noticed. They were nomadic or classic or just familiar to me. I listened for triggers of Satan being called, and I never found any. What I did notice was that when I listened to the cassette tape, it was really hard to go back into studying or reading a book or watching MTV. Speaking of MTV, you know the channel that started off playing music videos. The first time I saw Metallica's one video, I broke down and cried at how beautiful it was and how tragic. I prayed, and I wanted for that poor soldier to die and be taken away from all that pain. I bought more and more of whatever Metallica could produce and eventually attended one of their concerts at a very high ticket price. Going to the concert, I dressed like a fan. I screamed like a fan, and I allowed myself to be filled with their energy. If they played, then the whole audience was transfixed and transformed. Our idols are on stage. They could do no wrong. And when they left the stage, finally after 2 curtain calls, I missed them greatly. Praise. When I was there in the concert with all the other fans, we were in praise. We were giving Metallica attention and glory and putting everything else to the side. We offered up our money, our voices, and our time to them without interruption. In return, we were possessed by their music and their spirit that floated around the amphitheater. By possession, I mean we were their fans and they could use us however they wanted. If they told us to scream, we did. Clap, we did. Beg for more, we did. This is very similar to practicing any type of magic. Whether you are reading tarot cards, scrying, or practicing hoodoo, there is a time and place when you may want to praise the ancestor that is giving you your desires or allowing a spirit to possess you, and you use during this exchange or share of knowledge, if you will, energies and expressions in the divination process. Let me give you another example. Imagine your favorite drum beat. For many of us, this will make us want to move our bodies or sing words or stomp our feet to imitate the sound. The drum beat is possessing you to do so. It is using you to express a wisdom. When you praise your ancestors or guides, you're giving them attention and glory they deserve. When you worship, it's the same action. So reverence and adoration for a deity, but it can also be other physical or spiritual beings or objects. This is where hoodoo practitioners must be careful. Adoration should be resisted to avoid becoming enslaved or possessed. If you are willing to allow another spiritual or energy force to take over you during your time with them, it is only responsible for you to research that spirit, know your boundaries, Make those boundaries known and protect yourself before allowing it to happen. Then I skip ahead a little bit and I say, don't have an idea of what Bible verse to say. At a minimum, say the following from Psalms 32:7. You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance. And that's how I use the Bible. Yay. Any other questions? Other than that, let's get to signing away. I really appreciate everybody coming. I appreciate everybody buying the book. The response to the book has been really humbling. I just found out today that my very first copy of the book got sold in the UK, which is crazy. Impossible to even imagine. I mean, I'm in Colorado, right? If anyone knows the Bible, right, it'll be in the United Kingdom there, but but one of our girlfriends told us after reading the book and double checking it and everything, she was like, well, she's in Bismarck, North Dakota. She's like, well, I think it's okay, but I think you're gonna piss off the Catholics. If that happens, I guess that happens. All right. Who's first? Yay! Yay!
Yeah, because I think that the Bible has been a source of condemnation and restriction for many cultures, many groups, and myself included. And through this, you have liberated me. So thank you. I want 2 copies.
Thank you, GDC. This is Granddaughter Crow.
Yeah.
And my book is Granddaughter Crow approved. Yay!
Absolutely. I need one for Jeff and then one
Okay.
for GDC.
Yay!